Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone. Welcome to my channel. Today I have a 2013 Ford CMAX Hybrid with a 2-liter engine. This one came in with an ABS light on, and I scanned it for codes, had a P101C Brake Vacuum Pump General Electric failure. So I manually tested this thing with the scan tool, and in 10 times, 2 times it didn't turn on. So it's going to need a vacuum pump, and that vacuum pump is on the front of the engine, in between the radiator and the engine. So I'm going to show you how to replace that because you can't even see it. So let's get started. So to get started on this vacuum pump here, you're going to have two screws way up there above the radiator hose on that side and one at the top up here. It's going to look something like, let me see if I can get this up in here and show you. So, no, oh wait, here we go, found a view. Right through there. So you're gonna have a screw like, oh, like that right there. It's not focused, but like that. All right, so you got 2 at the top and you got an electrical connector to the fan. The next step is to, let me get a headlamp. Okay, so the next step, I've already done this part here. It was a little hectic yesterday, but anyways, this is the coolant pump here, and this slides in this little rubber boot here, and this attaches from the front. So this just slides in there, you're gonna take that out. You're gonna disconnect the connector for that, and it's also clipped in right there. You're gonna disconnect that. You're gonna come over here, and you're gonna have 3 connectors on this side here. You need to free all of them because we're gonna be dropping this assembly down to get the fan out. So you're gonna have 2 10mm bolts here. The nuts are captured, they're part of the frame. So you're gonna take these out. You're gonna have a bolt back here, or you could take these out. Take these 2 10s out here, and you're gonna be taking this support piece out on both sides. Once we do that, then we can get to the bolts for this front cross member, which are right there and right up the center. There's 2 on each side. So once we get these supports out, then we'll take this front part out. So what's easier is you go right through here from the top, and this is the upper radiator support right here. So you're gonna go through this upper radiator support, it's hollow, and it comes out right there. So I'm gonna put 2 zip ties because this is actually holding the radiator, the condenser, it's holding everything in the front up. So I put 2 on each side so that way we can take the bracket back off. Let's look at this vacuum pump. So here's what this vacuum pump looks like right here. Sits in the engine cavity above the coolant pump. So we'll be able to see it better once we get these braces out. So here's what those brackets look like that. Just 1 on each side. And you're just gonna have 4 long bolts and 4 short ones. The short ones go at the back. Got the bracket out, here's what it looks like. You're gonna have a harness clipped in right there, and the rubber guides that the radiator sits in, getting those popped out of this bracket is probably the hardest part about this step. So here's the little electrical harness that goes through the bracket, and that's what clips into that bracket right there. And that rubber part of that guide of the lower radiator hose, if you spray that with some lube, it makes it a little easier to get out. Now I have the radiator supported with a pole jack because I didn't support it with zip ties until later. You got to separate the radiator hose from the fan shroud. Unfortunately, mine broke. And then there's going to be 2 8mm bolts or screws, 1 on each side of the fan shroud right there and on the other side. The fan shroud clips into the radiator right there. Now because of the radiator hose, it makes it difficult to get the fan shroud out. If you took the hose off, it would be easier, but you do not need to take it off. So 2 things to note is 1, this lip right here kind of sits over the top of the radiator. So you have to pry the top towards the engine to get it to come down. The second thing you'll notice is that it won't come down. It's like something's holding it. It's because it's glued in place with this strip here. So you're gonna have to, when you give it a little pull, it'll finally tear. Then the tricky part is going to be getting your ears around the different things. So what I did was I pulled this ear, so the upper radiator hose is like this. So what I did was I pulled the ear out so it got to the rubber part of the hose, and then I was able to slide it down. And then the same thing over here. So it's just a little tricky, you just have to kind of walk it out. But it's doable, it's out. And now we can actually see the vacuum pump. And the good thing about the vacuum pump is we have the new one, so we could see where the mounting bolts are. So your connector is going to be right there. So let's look at this new one and look at the mounting bolts. Let's see about getting this thing out. You're going to take out 2 bolts for the thermostat housing right there. Now the thermostat housing, these just bolt it to the engine because one of the bolts for the vacuum pump is right there. Now right above that is a vacuum hose connection we have to disconnect. There's a button on the bottom and there is a button on the top. I'm going to try to show you. You have to depress both buttons and this will unlock and will still be on the vacuum pump. As we pull the vacuum pump off, the hose will come out. And then we just slide it back on as we put the new one back on. You're going to have 2 Christmas trees attached, one right there and one right there from the harness. Now to get this out, you're going to have to pull it out and then lift it up. So once you get it like that, you're going to have to pull the vacuum line off, and then you're going to get it to right over here and you're going to roll it down and it'll come out. So here's a better view of the vacuum pump connection. So here's the hose right here, and there's a button on the bottom right there. There's also one on the top. You depress those, it pulls back. And here's the hole where the vacuum pump sits up against the engine. So for this top bolt here on the top right, and then this one on both of the top bolts, what you can use is I have a magnetic Sunex Tools impact wobble here and about a 6-inch locking extension. And that works. To get to this bolt up here, you can go up through here. And then this bolt, you go right through there. And you can actually see, hang on. You can actually see this bolt right up through there. So it helps you align it. This bottom one here, you could just undo that one by hand, unthread it by hand. So as you're putting this thing in, you need to put your vacuum line on and click it in place because otherwise you'll have a really hard time getting it in. So here's how I put it in. So I bring it up like this and then rotate it into place. Now this bottom part right here has to go up and under the thermostat housing. So what you have to do, it normally sits like this. What you have to do is you have to pull the top out like this and lift it up and then rotate it in and then slide this behind the thermostat housing. And then once it drops in place, once you get this bolt started, everything lines up and it lays in place just like it needs to be. It's not super hard once you've got it in place. And then like I said, just don't forget to connect your vacuum line and also don't forget your connector. Because once you put this cooling fan back in, you can't get to this. And then the last step is to put your, don't forget to put your bolts back in your thermostat housing. Surprisingly, the fan slips up in there easier than it comes down. It's actually quite difficult to get out, but it comes out quite easy. So once you've put your fan in, what I recommend is you put a little bit of Silglide inside of this rubber boot here to make sliding this pump on easier. I fought it, I forgot to lube it, and I fought it all the way. So these 2 little rubber mounts that go in the underside for the radiator, lube those up with Silglide. And then don't forget this harness right here goes on the inside of the bracket that we're going to be putting up. So it's going to go in like that. So now that we've got this in, now is a good time to go ahead and connect your cooling fan as well, because it is right there, easy to get to with this brace out of the way. And then we'll drop it down and connect it from above. Not too bad once you get to this point. So after hanging by zip ties, your fan, your radiator assembly is going to maneuver around. So the easiest thing to do is to have your socket, an extension, and your bolts ready. Go ahead and get this lined up and that lined up and push it up until it locks in place. And then you can wiggle it side to side until you get it lined up, get one on each side, and then it will go right up. But when you first go to put it up, it's not going to line up. That's why it's imperative to lube these up, because they slip right in. All right, for putting these braces back up, the easiest thing to do is just to go ahead and slip the front in and start one bolt, and then you can maneuver this up and you can maneuver it around, get your bolts all started, and then zap it all together. So I have just the front one in here. You can see it slips right up, really easy to maneuver. So once you get the bracket underneath all bolted up, you got to drop it down. So the fan shroud actually goes up and over the top of the radiator. So before you bolt it in, it actually has to clip right there. You have to put it up and over, and then it will drop back down. And it also slides in on the sides of the fan shroud. And don't forget your 2 screws up top. Now that you've seen this video, you should feel pretty confident going in here and doing this this brake vacuum pump, and getting it all done. So thanks for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.